In this video, I'd like to look at VUE getting a drop-down list set of options from a JSON file. So in my example, I'm going to have a JSON file with information about a bunch of chess movies, and then when you pick the chess movie of your choice, it will display information about it, an image, various pieces of information, and including a link to the IMDb site for the movie. Okay, so that's what I want to show you here. If you want, I'm going to show you two versions. Here is a link to the code if you want it. Okay, so first version 1, I have a JSON file which starts off as an object, has a property movies, which its value is an array. It's an array of objects, and those objects have properties like title, year, director, etc. Okay. I have a style, colors and so on the background, some select styling specifically for the styling, some styling of options. So this styling gives me sort of an alternating gray, white, or light gray, dark gray. This is white, so that is indeed white, that is gray. Sort of back and forth modeling to distinguish between different options as we go down. I have a grid, so this is the overall div of the grid, 3 columns, some spacing between the grids, the grid gap. And then here is box, and that is within the styling within the grid. Okay. So this large thing is the wrapper, and then each individual thing is of a box class. Okay, so that is my style. Done with style, showed you the JSON. I still have to show you the JS and the HTML. So in this version, in this first version, I'm showing you the data is a set of movies that I'm going to read from the JSON file, and then the user's choice, which is going to be an object. Okay, so let's just look at the JSON. The JavaScript is pretty quick, so let's look at that. I have, in addition to the data, I have a created. I'm fetching the JSON file that we looked at. I put forward the JSON, return the JSON, and then the JSON had a property movies. So data is the JSON that got moved forward. It had a property movies, which was an array of objects, and I'm linking that to here, the property of, then I said in my data, also movies. They don't have to have the same name, but I often name them the same name, and this then refers to the object I'm in. So I'm getting the data out of the JSON file. And then I am picking doing math random and multiplying that by the lengths of the movie array and getting the floor of that and getting a random index and setting the user's choice equal to the movie, the element of the movie's array with that index. So that was choosing for me a random movie to start with. So as I refresh, I get different movies. So that was the JavaScript, and then the HTML, various meta tags. Here is my link to the VUE CDN, my title, my link to my CSS. And then here is my div of the wrapper class. It's also the div to which I am applying the view code, mounting the view code. So at the bottom here, I take all of this was called Chess Movie, and then I used create app and used that chess movie code to create an app and mount it to the element with an ID of VUE_chess. So this div is the wrapper of my grid and also the element to which I'm applying the view code. And so I have various divs. This one spans 2 columns. That's where the dropdown is. This one's in column 3 and spans 6 rows. That's the image. And then here is some view. So I had to select the model. I'm associating a property variable over in my view. And I called it, that was called user choice. That is my V model of the select. And then I have my options, and I'm using a V4. I'm looping over the movies array. That is one of my view properties. And this is, so I'm looping over it, I'm iterating over it. So a movie will be, I'll call it like the dummy object, the name just for the purposes of the iteration. The value of the option, I'm making the object. So that's what, when I choose one of the options from the drop-down select, that will become user choice. So user choice, as advertised over in the view, will be an object. And what we display between the open option and the close option is just the title of the movie. There's the end of the select. Here is the image. I'm doing a v-bind of the source property of the image tag, and I'm using the poster property of the user_choice object. Down here is so when I'm a property, when I'm an attribute of a tag, I do this colon before, that's the v binding. When I am sort of more out between 2 tags and the inner HTML of a tag, then I use curly curly. So here's me displaying the year of the user's choice, the director for the user's choice, the cast, the genre. Here I'm putting, I'm using this is the link. Down here, the IMDb link. And so I am v-binding. And in v-binding, you look back up to the image. The v-binding usually is in double quotes. And then if you are concatenating within that, so I have in the data is just the sort of code for the different IMDb titles, but that's not the full URL. So I needed to add in the URL, and that went in single quotes. So I have the double quote. Then within that, I have the single quote and the plus, and so I can get concatenating within. So I have my property, and then I'm concatenating within and making it v-binding it and making it the href property, target_blank. That makes it open a new tab. So when I click on this, pick a movie, fresh, and then if I do IMDb, it opens for the fresh page. So it's related to the movie I want and the runtime property and the description property. Okay, so version 2 is going to do almost exactly the same thing, but I'll show you the difference. So Chess Movie 2 and Select 2, the style was the same, the data is the same. I'll run it for you just to show you it's the same. So here it is. This is version 2, but it's the same, does the same thing. I don't have the random in there now. I can put it in. Okay, so this one's always coming up to 0. All right, but we can change that. All right, so let's look at the difference in the view code. I am changing, instead of making the user's choice an object, I am making it an index of the array that I already have. And so here I set it to 0 to start. Then when I fetch the JSON file, I again get the movies from the JSON file and make it my movies property. And then let's bring this part back. This should make it random. So now it comes up to, and this is version 2, and it's coming up to the random number. So that was commented out before, and so that's why it was coming up always. It was just using this, always coming up to the first movie. Okay, so that is the difference. So the big difference here is that I'm using the user index. So instead of having it be an object, it's having it be an index. But I can choose the index at random. And then what looks different here, I'm making my select. My model is now the user index. And now as I'm doing a V4, I do a movie, comma, index. So I'm looping over my movies array, but not just having the element of the array, but the sort of index of the array. And I'm making the value the index of the array. And then I am displaying between the open option and the close option, I'm displaying the title. So my drop-down select is a little bit different in its value. And then all below, when I'm using the properties, I have to change. And here's the V binding, the source to get the image. It's movies, my array, square bracket, user underscore index, because my V model is now for an index. And then I have an element of the array, and then that has properties like .poster, .year. And so that was the main change. But I was having one issue in that when I had the V model be an object, I was not getting an error. But I was getting, if I was looking at the console, I was getting an error here in this version. And so I needed to be a little bit more careful on this one. And that is that it was sort of rendering too quickly. And all of the rendering here is based on having read the file and knowing what the list of movies are. And it didn't seem to be an issue in the first one where the user's choice was an object, but it did seem to be more of a problem when the user's choice was an index. But I resolved that issue. Just sort of it takes time to get to read the file to do to do the fetching of the JSON file to get the resource, read it, parse the JSON, what have you. But it was solved here by introducing a template with a VIF. And I said then so I said there was movies and then it was an empty array to begin with. So I said I had a template V if the movie's length was greater than 0. So only do all this rendering and using the movies if there are indeed movies. So, and that solved the problem. Then I wasn't getting in the console, I wasn't seeing red. And that was the two big differences. So I changed the V model from an object to an index. Then I had to make my select different and make the value the index to correspond to the V model, and then use the properties of an element of my array rather than the user model, because the V model, the user thing is now an index, so I had to use it accordingly. And I needed, because of this sort of asynchronous issue, I needed the V template, so it didn't try to render anything until there was something worth rendering. So that's what I wanted to show you in this example. Thanks for your attention.